Welcome to Fruity Knitting. I'm Madeline.
And I'm Andrea.
And this is episode 156. Fruity Knitting is your gateway to knitting inspiration from around the world, as well as extra snippets of travel, history, and storytelling that we hope adds joy to your life and brings a smile to your face.
And today's program features a very special guest, the master knitting technician, designer, and educator, Lucy Neatby. So Lucy is originally from the UK, but she's now living in Canada, and we interviewed her during the Prince Edward Island Fibre Festival last September or October.
Yep.
So Lucy is a really passionate and colourful character, and her knitting journey is anything but ordinary. She began her career as a navigating officer in the Merchant Navy, and she taught herself to knit all of the extreme knitting techniques during long voyages at sea. Sometimes I think she was away for 6 months at a time. She even taught a fellow officer on a different ship how to knit via ship radio in the middle of the night. I think that was her very first teaching experience, and we might be going back to the late 80s or the early 90s. Since then, Lucy's become a leading expert, especially in double knitting and finishing techniques, and has inspired countless knitters from around the world with her teaching materials. So Lucy has the mind of an engineer and the creativity of an inventor, and she has really pushed the technical boundaries of double knitting and finishing techniques. So our 40-minute interview with Lucy is really packed with great ideas and techniques that showcase just how inventive and limitless knitting can be. I always get excited about that. And I think knitters looking to improve their technique will find this interview inspiring, but designers will too, because Lucy's ideas can easily be adapted to a designer's individual style or aesthetic, and they can open up new possibilities for construction and finishing techniques. So we're really thrilled to have her on the show.
Absolutely. We also have a mini interview with Rachel Atkinson from Daughter of a Shepherd. Rachel grew up in a family of shepherds, and so she saw how little farmers like her father earned from selling their sheep fleeces. She was determined to change this, and she used her mortgage deposit to partner up with a small-scale spinning mill, Arbon Textiles, to turn her father's undervalued Hebridean fleeces into beautiful undyed yarns. Hebridean sheep are a primitive breed, often used for conservation purposes, with a striking dark chocolate-coloured fleece, and it really is a fleece that's rich, natural, and full of character. So Rachel started her project 10 years ago, and by now, Daughter of a Shepherd is well loved amongst UK knitters who value unique heritage yarns with a good story behind them. Also in today's program, we have 3 new works in progress to share with you and under construction, and I reckon Mum should get us started on that.
Okay, so as you all know, I've just finished knitting Madeline's wedding veil. That was a really challenging project for me, but mainly because of the yarn that I was using. I was using 100% cashmere in ultra-fine cobweb weight yarn. And cobweb weight yarn is as thin as a sewing thread, so the difficulty there is that it's so hard to unpick mistakes if you make them, and of course you've got to make them. And also the lace is so see-through and so exposed. So
yeah, but that's what makes it so beautiful.
It is.
We look forward to showing you the end result in the next episode.
So for my next project, I wanted something completely different, something that was going to be super easy and relaxing and in a very bright colour. So I've chosen these 2 yarns here to knit together. And recently I actually bought myself a long flowing dress in exactly this colour. Here's a picture of it. The photo mightn't look like this colour, but it is actually exactly this colour. And I've received quite a lot of compliments on it, mainly that the colour really suits me, which I'm very happy about because I want to add some of this colour to my wardrobe. As you know, I have knitted all the shades of green to death, and I've almost done the same with the shades of blue, so it's good to start on pink. But I think this is a really special colour pink. I would describe this as a bright, clear pink with just a little bit of yellow in it, but not enough yellow to make it coral. Actually, this morning when I was cutting up the watermelon on the table, I thought, it's watermelon. That's what it is.
Kind of. It's a bit lighter than watermelon.
Oh, I don't think so. We'll let the audience decide. Is it the same as what's on the table?
Yeah.
Both these yarns are from the German company Pasquale, which has its headquarters just outside of Cologne, so very close to where we're living. An Arctic pearl is made from seaweed fibre, so that's 100% lyocell. It's very soft and drapey and shiny, and the mohair bliss yarn is 60% organic kid mohair and 40% silk. And if you're interested, the colour doesn't actually have a name, just a number, and its number is 818. So I wanted to knit a cardigan with this yarn, and I thought something pretty and glamorous because that's the style I'm quite attracted to at the moment. And I've chosen a pattern by a German designer who I've never actually knit before, and that's the Jean Cardigan by Kolibri by Johanna. Here's a picture of the design. It's a classic raglan cardigan worked from the top down in one piece. The pattern has wavy stripes made by alternating garter stitch and lace stripes. And I think it looks both cozy and elegant. And I also really like the V neckline. I'm quite into V necklines at the moment. And I like the romantic balloon sleeves. I think they're very beautiful as well. What I also like about the design is that it's got a double knit button band, and I've never done that before, but I think it looks great and it just gives it a really neat, sturdy finish. You did it for the first time on the Batita Knit Jenny jacket.
Exactly, the one that I made for my best friend Antonia, and I'm a fan of the double button band.
It's
I actually did
beautiful.
a tutorial on it a few episodes ago as well.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to doing that on this cardigan as well. So the recommended yarn for the design is a DK weight yarn that knits up to the gauge of 22 stitches and 34 rows to 10 centimetres squared. And I figured that if I knit these two yarns together, it would roughly come to a DK weight gauge. And I was very thrilled to find that my swatch was exactly 22 stitches and 34 rows. So that means that I don't have to recalculate any maths, which is great. And the design also suggests that you have somewhere between 2 and 12 centimetres of positive ease. And as many of you know, I like my tops to be fairly fitted, so I've gone for about 5 centimetres positive ease, and I'm going to knit size 2, which is small. There's also an extra small. What I also love about this design is that it is quite cropped, which means that I can wear it with dresses and skirts. So this is my progress. This is what I've done so far.
Very pretty.
Yeah, it's been such a feast for the eyes. It's just joyful to knit this colour. So it is worked top down, and you're knitting it back and forward in rows like this, and it has the typical raglan increases in 4 spots. So 2 on the left front, 2 on the right front, and 2 on the left back and right back, going down at the typical ratio, which is every second row. And then we've got the increases at a slower ratio for the V-neck at the front here. So the pattern is actually very easy to memorize. You do have to take care on the V-neck because you're changing the pattern slightly here. You're starting in different parts of the pattern. But as soon as you've knitted down to the sleeve separation, you've got it memorized, and then you separate the sleeves from the body and you knit straight down on the body with no shaping in the for waist. So that's pretty easy. I've got about another 5 centimetres to go. I'll turn it around so you can see the back. And then I'll start my ribbing for the hem, which is going to be 1 by 1 and twisted stitches. So there we go there. And then afterwards, it's such a luscious colour, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And afterwards, you pick up stitches around the sleeves, and they also get knitted straight down without any decreases. And then right before the cuff, you rapidly decrease, and that's what creates the lovely sort of balloon-shaped sleeves. And then you're doing your twisted stitches for the cuff again. And then I get to cast on stitches around the neckband and try the double knit neckband. So I'm going to just show it to you. I'll put it on so you can see what I've done so far. Yeah, it's been exactly what I wanted, relaxing and a feast for the eyes.
It goes with your lipstick too.
Yes. So there we go. And it's very, very soft. This is really a lovely silky yarn here.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that it's made of seaweed too.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll start making more yarns like that, because it probably grows a lot faster than if you make yarns out of trees or...
That I don't know. We'd have to look into.
Yeah.
But that's me done for my latest project.
Yeah, that's so pretty. I've made a little bit of progress on my olive top by Knitting for Olive. It's looking a bit ragged at the moment because of all the loose ends. I'm using the 100% merino yarn by Knitting for Olive in the colourway Dusty Rose. And I was pretty happy with this colour, but against this bright pink, mine looks a bit dull. Here's a photo of what the finished top will look like. The olive top is knit from the top down with a beautiful and easy stitch pattern that resembles small leaves. It's knit on 3mm needles and it's designed to fit with a negative ease of 4 to 14 centimetres so that it will hug your body. So 4 to 14 centimetres is quite a big range for a negative ease. My bust circumference is 85 centimetres, and because my stitch gauge is like the recommended stitch gauge, size small should give me 8 centimetres of negative ease, while size extra small should give me 14 centimetres of negative ease. So both would work according to the pattern, and I would think that size small is tight enough. However, back when we interviewed Knitting for Olive in episode 138, we did so in their shop in Copenhagen. So after the interview, I tried on their Barbro blouse, which is also designed to have negative ease. And Pernille, the designer, recommended that I knit size extra small. And Mum has done so. That top fits both of us very well. So that would make me think that maybe the olive top should be knit in size extra small as well, if it's supposed to have negative ease. Also, when you go to Ravelry and look at other people's olive tops, to me they don't seem to have very much or even any negative ease, which I don't think is necessarily a problem. It still looks nice, but that suggests to me that the pattern knits up slightly larger than you would expect. My final thought on this is that the section underneath the armholes could also end up looking a little bit sloppy if knit in too large a size. So it may be better to knit a tighter size, at least around the chest area, even if you decide to increase a little bit further down. Now the construction is pretty simple. You start off by knitting 4 of these identical triangles, and the triangles form the front and the back of your chest area. Yeah, looks like a too small bikini at the moment. And you begin these triangles with a provisional cast on, so that later when you pick up those stitches to knit the I-cord shoulder straps, you don't have an ugly seam here. And I quite like that construction method.
Yeah,
it's quite
very
nice.
neat. And there's another 2 at the back.
Exactly. Yeah, a mini bikini. And I used the crochet chain method for the provisional cast on, which I really like. You simply crochet a chain stitch, and then you knit the first row of the triangle into the back loops of those chain stitches. And what's great about this is that when the time comes for you to pick up the stitches again, you simply unravel this here and then you pull the I-cord, the chain stitch, and it completely unravels. So your live stitches are ready to go. Yeah, so that's why I like that method. After I did the provisional cast on, I knit the triangles separately. And then finally, you have to join them in the round. And when you join them in the round, of course, you also have to do some cast on some underarm stitches. And since I was teetering between size extra small and small, the first section, so this triangle, was actually the same for both sizes. Only once it came to casting on the underarms was there a difference, because for size small, you cast on additional stitches, which leads to a wider circumference. And even though I was tending towards size extra small, in the last moment I chickened out and I went for size small.
Did you?
I did.
Because you told me that you were going to undo it and do extra small.
Well, I did. I'm getting to that part.
Okay.
So I knit size small for a few rounds and then I tried it on. And I realised that I had quite a bit of positive ease on me, so size small is out of the question for me. And I went back and now I'm knitting size extra small. So we'll see how much negative ease I actually get with this size extra small. Also, I'm going to check at some point whether my stitch gauge has changed from when I did my swatch, because maybe that explains it as well.
Okay, I wasn't completely listening. I thought you were saying that you planned on doing extra small and then, no, you planned on doing small, then you looked at doing extra small and then you decided, no, you'll go back to small.
Yeah, and then I went to extra small again.
Oh, goodness.
So that's why I haven't done much progress so far.
Okay, so Madeline, honestly.
Well, you told me to do size small, I might say.
Did I?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So I was actually right in the beginning.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, I'm going to show you the stitch pattern up close now. So here's a close-up view of the stitch pattern. It starts by gradually increasing 2 stitches on either side of the center, forming the shape of a leaf. And once you've reached the full width, you knit straight for a few rows, and then you decrease again to shape the top of the leaf. And as you can see, you're knitting 3 stitches together in the center here. Now with knit 3 togethers, you can achieve 3 different looks. The decrease can lean to the left, to the right, or it can be centered. And when it's centered, the 2 outer stitches look like they're slanting in towards the middle. So this centered version is perfect for creating a symmetrical leaf shape. And here's how you do it. So these are my 3 stitches. To make a centered double decrease, I slip the first 2 stitches knitwise, and then I knit the 3rd stitch, and finally pass the 2 slip stitches over the one I just knit. A mistake I made at first was slipping the 2 stitches separately, and you don't want to do that. Make sure to slip both stitches knitwise at the same time. So to do this, you insert your right needle through the 2nd stitch, then the 1st stitch, and then you slide them both off the left needle together. Knit the 3rd stitch, then lift the 2 slip stitches over the 3rd stitch. And here is the end result, a perfectly centered knit 3 together. Now for comparison, here's how to do the left and right leaning versions of a knit 3 together. For the left leaning version, slip the 1st stitch knitwise, then knit the 2nd and 3rd stitch together, and finally pass the 1st slip stitch over the stitch you just created. So this creates a left-leaning decrease. The right-leaning version is a bit trickier, but it's still manageable. First, slip the 1st stitch knitwise, then knit the 2nd stitch, pass the slipped stitch over the one you just knit, and now place that stitch back onto your left needle. And finally, pass the 3rd stitch over the 2nd stitch. So this gives you a nice right leaning decrease. So that was a brief refresher or introduction to the various ways you can knit 3 stitches together. Unfortunately, as you can see, I haven't made much progress on this top. I had hoped to do more. One reason is that I've simply been very busy, but the other reason is that I had to finish another surprise project first, which I can't show you until next episode. But it's part of my wedding dress.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So that's my second excuse. Anyway, coming up now is our interview with Rachel Atkinson from Daughter of a Shepherd. I'm with Rachel Atkinson, also known as daughter of a shepherd. Now, coming from a family of shepherds, Rachel saw firsthand how little farmers earned from selling their fleeces, and so she set out to change that. By partnering up with different woolen mills, Rachel turned her father's undervalued fleeces into beautiful undyed yarns. So Rachel, tell us more about the story and the mission behind your business, starting with your childhood, growing up with your sister in the fields while your dad was shepherding his
That's
sheep.
right, yeah. We spent a lot of time, weekends in the fields with my dad. He'd be looking after his sheep, training his sheepdog, which is his real passion.
Yep.
And so we'd be outside. We were outside most of the time. Obviously got to see a lot of how the sheep were looked after and how the dogs worked, and learned a lot about the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
And
you took a little bit of a break, but you came back to knitting.
I did, yeah. Sort of in my late 20s, I came back to knitting and to wool, and it became my career, and I moved into tech editing for knit, crochet and craft publications and independent designers. And while all this was going on, I went to visit my father one weekend, and at this point, he's shepherding a flock of Hebridean sheep, which are kept for conservation grazing on a nature reserve just outside York. They're very small, primitive, really hardy sheep. They live outside all year round. When they're born, they're sort of pretty much jet black. And then as they grow, their fleeces obviously grow as well. But some of them stay black. Some of them are affected by the weather. So in the sun, they bleach to this lovely Arbon colour. Some of them go blonde. And then others, with age, they go grey as well. So you end up with a really big mixture of different coloured fleeces.
Yeah.
But once we take those, they will all go. So once you mix them all up again, it returns to this black, which is the undercoat.
Yeah, so you had a reliable colour.
That's right, yes, because I did worry. I was like, do we split them all up into different colours? But actually, once they've been washed and spun.
Yeah, but you got into making yarns because you saw how little your father was paid for his fleeces.
That's right. So the weekend I was there, he'd just received a cheque from the Wool Board, which was for 97 pence for about 300 fleeces.
Isn't that incredible? It's a bit heartbreaking for a knitter to hear that.
It's really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And because it's such an incredible colour, and as a knitter, I really wanted to work with it, and I couldn't believe that it could not be worth more. And if I wanted to knit it with it, I thought other people would too. So I spoke to the owner of the flock, and he agreed to sell me the newest clip, and I sunk my mortgage deposit into having it spun. I ended up at the door of John Arbon, and he agreed to spin it.
Yeah. So why did you choose John Arbon? Because they only do worsted spun yarns.
That's right, yes. So they've got an amazing reputation, and because they do worsted spinning, and because it is quite a rustic yarn, and it's always had a reputation of not being that soft, I really wanted to produce the best yarn possible.
Yeah.
And make it more desirable.
Yeah, and a worsted spun's a bit smoother than a woolen spun, which has fleece or hair sticking out.
That's right. So with worsted spinning, you comb all the fibres to align them, so it gives a much smoother drapier yarn as well.
Well, we can show an example of your yarns that came by, and they are mixed with swarbles, I believe.
They are, yes, because the staple length of the Hebridean can be quite unreliable, and it's not the ideal length for worsted spinning. We blend it with 25% Swarbles from a flock local to the mill. And the Swarbles is a very, very dark fleece as well.
Yeah.
But because it has that longer staple, once they're all combed together, it gives something for the Hebridean to
latch
hold on to.
And this is a beautiful colour. I'm actually wearing an example of this yarn knitted up. And I have to say it's also quite drapey. So, and the good thing about this colour, I believe, is that it suits both warm and cold complexions, which is quite nice.
Very much so. Yeah, it does really suits a lot of people. So if you put a black sweater on, like a true black, it might drain you, but this doesn't. It will work with different complexions.
So this was your heritage yarn range, and what yarn ranges have you developed since then?
Well, since then, the natural follow-on from that was during the shearing of my father's flock, I got chatting to a couple of the shearers, and one of them told me that he goes around a lot of small flocks that are usually like backyard or small holdings, and the fleece
Usually gets thrown away, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. A lot of it was getting thrown away. So he said, would you be interested in it? And I was like, that would be fantastic, yeah. So the following season, he gathered all the fleeces in from these shearings and phoned me at the end of summer and arrived. We arranged to meet up, and he basically had a trailer full of fleece, and we split it into black and white. There's about 12 different breeds.
You basically had to find a good way to spin them together because they had different staple lengths, right?
Exactly, yeah. So because it was such a mishmash of fleeces, the best way to spin it would be woolen spun. And John Arbon pointed me in the direction of a mill in Yorkshire called Light Owlers. So actually it's an entirely Yorkshire made yarn as well, because everything's washed in Yorkshire and the fleece is from there. So we took it to Light Owlers, and they produced the black and the white, and then we took, because there was so much fleece, we then managed to blend 3 different greys as well.
So we've got that behind us, and this is the Ram Jam, isn't it?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. So
this is the darkest, that's the lightest, and these are the blends in between?
These are the blends, yeah. So it's exactly like making paint. You take the black and the white and make your greys according to how much black and how much white is in there.
And what weights do the yarns come in?
We had it spun as a sport weight and a worsted weight, and it's really light and airy.
Also good for wearing in the outdoors.
It's brilliant, yeah. Yeah, it's great for outdoor wear. And that's what we recommend it for as well, because it's not a particularly soft yarn. It's softer than a lot of people imagine it will be.
Yeah.
But it's really hard wearing. It's very light, incredibly warm. Thank you.
We've also got some examples of it.
Yeah.
Right here. So which colours is this using?
This one is in the black and the light grey.
Yeah.
And this was the other nice thing about having a gradient, was then I can start exploring colour palettes and colour work, mosaic work.
And this one
This one is done with the grey and the white.
Yeah. Some beautiful contrast here, and I imagine this is extremely warm as well.
Incredibly warm, yes, yeah. And just really hard wearing as well.
Yeah. And so from the Ram Jam, you went on to a sock yarn, I believe.
That's right, yes. So that was mainly what I knit is socks. And I'm always trying to find new ways to use the dark fleece. I always like to go back and think, okay, we've done this, what can we do with it now? Yeah. And next...
What is this range called?
This range is called Drover.
Drover, okay.
And this is spun by John Arbon Textiles. Again, it's taking the black and the white and blending the greys. And then we also added a marlin, which I love. That was a personal project, that one, just to satisfy myself. And I think, so with this, it is spun as a 3-ply yarn, and it has a high twist. It's 90% wool with 10% nylon to make it last as long as possible, basically. So it knits into a really hard wearing and very, very, very warm sock. So it's perfect for
the
walking,
outdoors,
winter. If you suffer with very cold feet, it'll warm you up in no time at all.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, and you actually come from publishing. So you recently also published your own book. Why don't you tell us about your book?
Yeah, sure. When I was starting this whole project, it's 10 years ago now, everybody was very interested in the story and how I'd got started, and because I did it to prove a point more than anything else. Yeah. And so the book covers that journey and includes lots of photographs from my childhood and stories from along the journey. And there's a couple of essays, one by Clara Parks, one by Knitsonic Felicity Ford, and then there's also 10 knitting and crochet patterns as well, which use our worsted heritage yarn.
Gorgeous. Well, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank
story
you.
with us.
Thank
And I
you.
have to say, I'm falling in love with this lovely chocolate-coloured yarn here. And I'm sure lots of people would appreciate some warm feet, so get yourself some sock yarn.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed the interview. And if you fell in love with one of the dark chocolate browns of the Hebridean fleece, then we invite you to become a Hebridean patron to support the show. For only $5 a month, you can help us to keep producing new episodes and to keep sharing stories like that of Rachel with the worldwide knitting community. Over the years, we've built a massive archive of educational and entertaining knitting content. If you have a favourite knitwear designer, especially if they're well known, then there is a good chance that we've interviewed them in one of our previous episodes. We've also featured woolen mills, sheep and alpaca farmers, and other non-knitting artisan handcrafters. You can find all of these interviews on our website, fruityknitting.com, by checking the guest index. Our website is packed with information and it's an excellent resource for knitters, so I encourage you to go and visit it. That's fruityknitting.com. People often tell us they appreciate the amount of information we pack into each episode, and I'm glad because that is intentional. We want every minute to be interesting and relevant to you. But that also means that we have to do a lot of research and preparation in advance to make each episode the way it is. So to support the show, please visit patreon.com/fruityknitting to make a small monthly contribution. We have 3 different levels of membership or support. We have our Hebrideans, Merinos and Shetland patrons. And by becoming a patron, your contribution helps to compensate us for the time, the work, and even the money we invest in advance to bring each new episode to life. So again, that's patreon.com/fruityknitting to become a patron and support the show. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And speaking of patrons, Rachel from Daughter of a Shepherd is generously offering a 20% discount on all full price items in her online store. So that includes her 3 yarn ranges, Ram Jam, Drover Sock and Heritage, which all come in natural colours, including the chocolate brown, the creamy white, and a variety of in-between shades. And her online shop also includes various haberdashery items and books, stationery and knitting patterns. So thank you very much to Rachel for this wonderful discount.
I like to compare expanding your knitting knowledge to broadening your vocabulary, because both help us to be more precise and to look or to sound more polished. So if you would like to expand your knitting vocabulary/skills, then this next discount should definitely pique your interest. Lucy Neatby is generously offering Fruity Knitting patrons a 25% discount on all her video tutorials and ebooks. These cover a wide range of topics, from deep dives into sock knitting, intarsia, various finishing techniques, how to fix mistakes, mastering short rows, and so much more. Lucy is also offering 25% on all her patterns. And in addition, the Little Barn Studio, which sells Lucy's tutorials and patterns online, is offering a 15% discount on all their yarn, spinning fibres and buttons in their online store. So this is an extensive discount, and we encourage our patrons to browse through the Little Barn Studio online shop to see if there's something they like. All discount details can be found, as always, on our Patreon page. So thank you to Lucy and to the Little Barn Studio for these great discounts.
So as you know, coming up this October, we're hosting 2 knitting retreats on the banks of Lake Aachen in the Austrian Alps. And for the second knitting retreat, the workshops are going to be led by Charlotte Stone of Stone Knits. If you don't know Charlotte, we have actually interviewed her twice. And she designs the most charming and joyful pictorial stranded colourwork socks. They'll always put a smile on your face. And as part of the gift bag for our participants in the second retreat, Charlotte is designing a very special stranded colourwork hat that features the mountainous landscape and the lake surrounding the resort where we're staying. So it's a very, very special design just for our retreat. We're very excited about it. And the participants will receive the design and the yarn to knit it with as part of the gift bag. The yarn, I have to tell you, is to die for. It's one of my all-time favourite yarns. It's by Arbon Textiles, and it's their Yarnadelic, which is 100% Falklands Corriedale. I keep saying corridor. If you don't know what Corriedale is, you can imagine it's like merino, so it's very soft, but the staple length is a little bit longer, and it means that it is a little bit more durable and it doesn't peel less, so it's an ideal yarn.
No, it doesn't peel more.
It doesn't peel more, not less. So there are 7 colours in this hat design, and the participants will be getting 8 25-gram mini skeins, and the colours really are gorgeous. John Arbon dyes in the fleece, which means that they will dye the fleece, first of all, in different primary colours, and then they will mix a new shade like a recipe, taking bits and percentages of different colours and putting them together. So you won't get a flat colour. It'll be a colour that has little flecks of other colours in it, so it's really alive, especially in the sunlight.
Yeah.
And I want to show you a close-up picture so you can see these gorgeous yarns. So here are the colours. This warm dark green is called Harmonium, and it forms the brim of the hat and represents the lush green hills of Austria. Then we have Pink Moon, and that's used for the little pink flowers that cover the green hills. Then comes a vast lake in this stunning dark turquoise called Of My Hands, and floating on the lake are light blue sailing boats with white sails and pink flags. So the light blue is Woman in Blue, and the sails use the undyed yarn, and that's Ordinary Joe. Then further in the distance lie bright green grassy banks, and for that we've got the bright green English sparrows, and that provides a really great contrast to the dark, tall mountains of the Austrian Alps, and those mountains are knitted in the colour Black Gold of the Sun. I think that colour has to be one of my all-time favourites. It's a really unusual, beautiful colour. And of course it gets quite cold up high in the mountains, so naturally their peaks will have a little bit of snow on them. And because it's a happy scene, we have a lovely blue sky dotted with puffy clouds. So I'm not going to show you the pattern because it has to be a surprise for the participants, but I hope my description has conjured up a lovely, happy Austrian Alps scene in your imagination. Yeah, so the pattern, I'm sure Charlotte will release the pattern after the retreat for everyone to buy sometime in the future. I'm very excited about it. It's going to come in 4 different sizes, so you can knit one for every member of the family, from Goldilocks to Papa Bear. I've actually started knitting mine here. It doesn't show you much. This is the brim. It's going to have a nice brim that you can turn up double, which is great for your ears and to help sort of windproof, and we can see a little bit of it there.
And I also like that it's green because I think this green suits a lot of different people.
Yeah, it's good for this green right next to your face is good for people who like warm colours or cool colours. Looks great with your eyes. So you've got to start knitting one too.
I know, I really want to knit one for myself as well. I think the pattern is utterly adorable. I'm looking forward to showing it to you when it's finished. And also the yarns are just utterly delicious. John Arbon Textiles is one of our favourite yarn producers. And every time I pick them up, my brain just releases so much dopamine from looking at them. So it's quite nice. And also it'll be fun to wear this hat when we're in the Austrian Alps, sort of reflecting the landscape that surrounds us on our hats.
Yeah. I have to very quickly tell you the name of the pattern.
Oh, yeah.
It's called The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Knitters.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. And as many of you will recognise, it's a nod to the sound of music. The hills are alive with the sound of music. What's funny for us being Australians living in Germany, most Germans probably have heard of the Von Trapp family, but a lot of them have never seen the musical with Julie Andrews, whereas I think most people, certainly of my age, growing up in English-speaking countries, have been brought up on that musical, and it would have to be one of my all-time favourite films. So I'm super happy to have a pattern named after it.
I know. Anyway, That offers just another glimpse into what awaits our retreat participants in a few months' time. And coming up now is our feature interview with Lucy Neatby. Now, Lucy has a real talent for explaining knitting techniques to other people. And in fact, 2 episodes ago, I showed you how I grafted together the colourwork yoke section of Ryan's Waderrundpferd sweater using a super easy grafting technique that was quite new to me. And I'd learned that technique from one of Lucy Neatby's tutorials. So it's time for us to say goodbye now. Enjoy the interview. You will learn a lot from Lucy. And we will see you again in August to tell you all about my wedding.
Yes, very exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for spending time with us.
Bye.
Bye. Welcome to Fruity Knitting. Joining me is Lucy Neatby, a seasoned knitwear designer and teacher who initially worked as a Merchant Navy navigating officer. So Lucy has over 40 years experience in knitting. She's mastered a wide range of techniques and she's become a dedicated educator through workshops, books and online courses. And I think this is going to be a really fun interview today because Lucy's had a life rich in adventure and creativity, and she's going to share her story from sailing the seas to guiding students through intricate knitting techniques. And I'm really hoping she's going to show us some of her best tips and tricks. So Lucy, I am really thrilled you agreed to this interview. Thank you for coming on Fruity Knitting.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's fun to meet you at last.
It is super fun and we're so colourful here. I'm really excited. So can you just tell us, how did you make the switch from sailing the ocean on large cargo ships to becoming a knitwear designer and teacher?
Like the best things in life, it was an accident. I would set off to sea and I'd be going away for 6 months. And so my first step of preparation was to go to a yarn shop, buy a pattern and the right needles and head off to sea. So whilst I was away at sea, I had to puzzle it out myself. There were rarely any other knitters on the ship, and I can remember getting stuck on projects, putting them aside, and eventually at some point the penny dropped and I could actually finish them. I knit like that for quite a while. I ended up working on a ship where the skipper had 6 sisters. They were very advantageous to me in the fact that he would keep me in yarn. I would keep knitting things I wanted to knit. So if I never knit a ferrule, I'd do that. If I'd never done lace, I'd do that. He had a present for every sister when he went home.
Oh, what a great arrangement.
It was wonderful. And it was my own personal master knitter course. So I would actually pre-select the pattern so that I didn't end up doing the same thing twice.
Yeah.
And I learned my craft that way. I even had a friend on another ship nearby, and in the wee hours of the night when things were quiet, I ended up guiding her through a knitting project. So technically that was my first chance of teaching knitting.
Over ship radio.
Yes, Channel 70 in the middle of the night. Good job it wasn't lace, over.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and then you also told me that your kids before the age of the internet were helping you. They had a permanent part-time job.
Absolutely.
With stickers and packaging.
Yep. And when the children were growing up, that was their actual occupation. This was pre-internet. My patterns went into sleeves. The pictures were stuck on, and that was the work that my children did. They carried on doing that till they left for university. So it was so my first pattern was an 11 by 17 folded and sold at the Fleece Artist in Halifax. It was all hand drawn charts. So there's been a major technological overhaul since I started producing patterns.
Absolutely.
They also gave me my first opportunity to properly teach. And I was a wee bit surprised. My first class was a 3-hour class. And I was attempting to cover a soupçon of stranded knitting, a little bit of intarsia, and a tad of mosaic knitting.
All in one class.
In 3 hours, yeah. And I was a bit surprised that they couldn't sort of stay the pace.
They couldn't keep up with you. Okay, so you've learned good teaching skills since then.
I've refined my skills since then, yes.
That's great. Okay, now what other crafting skills do you have, and how have they informed your knitting? Because I know you've done a lot.
I have experimented with, I love to create. And over the years I have spun, I've had a little dabble into machine knitting, I quilt, I rug hook, I paint. It all involves colour and creativity. And you learn subtly, you learn about colour use. More, I find that I learn more from fabric than I do from knitting, but I apply it to my knitting. Mm-hmm. And in particular, I found the machine knitting led me on to the use of ravel cord, or in machine knitting, it's known as ravel cord. It's used as a temporary sort of holding for your cast on edge. But I began to see the advantages and multitude of wonderful uses that you could put that to in regular knitting.
Okay, and you've got an example, haven't you?
I do.
Good. We're going to learn about it.
So this would be a typical example. This is the beginning of a piece of knitting. So rather than casting on, I've worked about 5 or 6 rows of waste yarn. I don't call it ravel cord. I'd call it waste yarn. And I have then worked in pattern until I'm 1 row short of my last repeat. Now I can, at the end, the 1 row short, I work that missing row with my first row of waste yarn. So it's a wrong side row, so I purled and I knitted and I purled and I knitted. And I now have a colour illustrated guide to putting these 2 pieces together. It's as simple as rolling it up. And so these are the heads of these stitches, and I'm sewing them to the feet of their great-great-grandparents. And I'm using the waste yarn as a sewing guide. So up here, that waste yarn goes around like that. I just test it, everything's lovely. Column 1 is lined up.
That's excellent. So you don't have to be thinking knitting off and purling on and all of that. You just follow the yarn.
You follow the yarn. And it doesn't matter if you are an unconventional knitter where your stitches sit differently, or you prefer to sew from left to right. It works for anyone. And it's under complete control. The trickiest part when you have knits and purls is the transition from one to the other. So here I'm about to get into the edge knits, and I have that little piece of yarn to follow, so I'm going to follow that. That's good. And now down here, my pink yarn goes in here and up under there. And now I'm back into my side knits. So my next stitch is that one. And I can pat myself on the back and say, you've got it right, because they line up perfectly. There is the knit column perfectly aligned. There are your purl stitches.
Yes, okay. And of course you've just done that in a contrasting colour so we can see it. But once you've done it in the yellow colour, it's a perfect finish.
And it's the missing row of pattern.
Yes.
It counts as a row of knitting.
Okay. And what's this section here?
Well, this is a finished one that I baked earlier. And this is the final waste yarn. So I was knitting in this direction. I finished here. This is the one where I mimicked that last row in pattern, and I bound off the stitches. So I'm going to turn it inside out. I'm undoing my bound off edge, and it should come out as easily as that, and we'll look at it from the public side again.
Beautiful.
All holding together.
Yep.
And this is my beginning waste yarn flap, so I did 5 or 6 rows of stocking stitch, but I took the precaution of making my last row with a raw end at both ends, so that I can actually just pull this strand and it will come sliding out of those stitches, dropping off the first waste yarn.
Excellent.
So that's a quick release thread. And there is my perfectly joined, my beginning and end are there.
You're using it on a lot of different places on garments and accessories, and you've taken that directly from the machine knitting.
Absolutely. I would probably not have thought of removable cords, and so I've just taken it to all sorts of applications in hand knitting.
Yeah. And you've also done a lot of hand spinning, you told me before, so that has helped you understand yarn better, I think. Is
Absolutely.
That right?
I'm very much about happy stitches in my knitting, and it's all to do with balance. Our yarn construction is made of several plies that are usually spun Z and then twisted together in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And if the balance isn't right, you get a yarn that kinks up or stitches that sit on their sides and are not properly balanced. So balance is everything in knitting. It's also everything in making your stitches happy in the middle of your knitting. And it's your poor old edge stitches didn't get a balancing stitch out beyond them.
Yes.
And that's why they always look a bit unhappy.
A bit sloppy.
They can't help it. They didn't get a friend on the other side.
Yeah. It's very community spirited knitting, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a team.
It is. Okay.
It takes a team to make a stitch.
Now, you have mastered many knitting styles over the years, and you've also mentioned that it's easier to say what techniques you don't like than what you do like. So I'm just wondering now, can you give us, tell us what you don't like first, and then can you share some of your favourite knitting techniques, but especially the ones that you're teaching in workshops, because I'd just like the viewers to get a good overview of how wide your teaching curriculum actually is.
I've tried so many different kinds of knitting, but I have to say, even though I've tried mosaic and a bit of brioche, I can't warm to them. I don't really know why. I think it's the slipping possibly in the mosaic, but it's kind of too angular for me. But anyway, there's so many other wonderful things. I didn't need to worry about those.
That's true.
Very early passion was intarsia because I'd had some disasters before I understood the concept of linking yarns.
Yes.
And I threw myself into intarsia in great depth with huge numbers of colour, and being unlimited in colour use is very important to me. And
this is a good example of that, this lovely picture.
Yes, this was a commission. They wanted cheapy, I wanted colourful, so this is what we got. I moved out of intarsia designs as I was travelling more and more, because it's not a terribly portable form of knitting. I did a lot of Fair Isle type designs and learned to use my other hand. I started out 100% right hand, got into Fair Isle, dabbled with double knitting on the side. I've explored socks quite extensively and ended up writing a book that utilised self-patterning yarns, but trying to find patterns that would emphasise or magnify the effect of a self-patterning rather than diminish it, and with different toes and heels. But I also like to do pictorial socks. My son has a tractor problem, and he still has a tractor problem.
At what age?
Oh, 40-ish.
Okay, 40-ish.
So I experimented with socks of many sorts, and then I had a holy period. I've always been interested in negative space and being able to see one thing through another. And I did holes in different styles. There's lace, of course, and then I developed them into bigger and more exotic holes. And these ones are made by slipping the stitches you wish to get rid of onto a stretchy stitch. And then you jump across the hole and replace them on your next row, so you're not casting on and binding off. It makes wonderful fabrics, but they're also useful for buttonholes, for bag handles, thumb holes, and just some really sensational fabrics. I've covered beads and lace and many, many subjects, so my workshop list is sort of pushing over 50. And
full DVD tutorials?
No, they're just workshop
Okay,
subjects, and 16 very long DVDs,
Okay.
which were collections of the things I discovered when teaching. And I thought, they let you leave home before you knew that?
Yeah.
But finishing techniques were a passion from the very day I learned mattress stitch from Mont Stanley. And it was when my son was tiny, so about 40 years ago, I discovered it was a revelation. Suddenly to be able to do a beautiful seam and not have to hide it, being able to assemble knitting from various pieces. And so this vest is an example that I love putting facings and making it look as hopefully as good on the inside as it is on the outside.
This certainly does look like that. I think it looks reversible. It's so neat and beautiful on the inside. That's what I noticed when I was filming during the PEI Fibre Festival. I was filming the different workshops, and I slipped into Lucy's workshop, and the first thing I noticed was how fine and beautiful your knitting was. I love the fact that you knit at a tight gauge. I do too.
It's like a well-focused photograph.
Yes.
I mean, and you get much better value for money from your yarn because it lasts longer.
And it makes the knitting look so beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
it wears
great.
better as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. Now, I actually first heard about you when I interviewed Amy Detchen. That was back in episode 90. And Amy actually said to me, if you ever get a chance, you must interview Lucy Neatby because she's the double knitting master. So today, I would really love you to show our viewers some of the most advanced double knitting techniques in your repertoire. So really show off.
I'd like to show you some double knitting and examples of what it can do. But first of all, what is it I mean by double knitting? There's many different applications of the term, and we're not talking about double knitting weight yarn. Double knitting in the sense that I mean it is 2-layer knitting. If you can imagine my hands to be stocking stitch, the back is the knit side, the palm is the purl side. I envisage double knitting as taking the stitches from both those fabrics and having them cohabit on one needle. A front stitch, a back stitch, a front stitch, a back stitch. And from there, we can make an incredible array of options and different things we can't do with single knitting. So I'm going to show you a few examples. So this is a very simple piece of negative positive double knitting. It's a mitten, and it's lined with a finer fabric. So what you see on the outside, it's the opposite in the inside, but I've used a fine silk wool so that you've got this lovely cozy mitten. So a mitten is twice as thick as an ordinary single knit mitten. Ideal for that and for hats. This hat is a fun creation. It's a little slower than regular double knitting in that I've made my zigzags by shapings, so I've got lots of increases and decreases, and that's side one and that's side two. And that's another thing about double knitting. You get this really radical difference between the sides if you plan your designs accordingly. This is a textured double knitting, where on this side you hardly see any texture and it's stocking stitch. This side we've got little pillows of reverse stocking stitch to create extra warmth and coziness. This is a little neck warmer. My particular passion is circular double knitting, and I've done many blankets, but if you're not up to a whole blanket, you can start it at the neck and just make a little neck warmer. So I love knitting these. This one is just an example of some of the fun effects you can get because you're using two yarns. And so if you make something with things of different weights, the more drastic it is, the more effective it is. But we've got very cozy, cushiony, pillowy bits. Yeah. And you can only separate double knitting where the yarns don't cross if you're using two colours. So in fact, the use of the colour patterning holds the layers together and emphasises the differences between these fabrics.
That's very beautiful and striking. A real 3D effect.
It's fun. And artists often use double knitting to encase things in a piece that they might be making.
Okay,
like
yeah.
stones, and you can make pockets.
Yeah.
And that brings me to pockets. Double knitting, even if you are a single knitter and never plan to double knit pockets are so incredibly wonderful. And you only use one yarn at a time, or you're only using one yarn, and you can make this pocket without a flap and fusing it onto the fabric. So it's really elegant, and I'm going to show you how to do that. This is a bag worked in the round, and it has pockets on both sides. And the pockets, apart from the top, were worked integral as you worked the bag itself. So no joining, no adding in anything extra. The only extra was the pocket top. This sock here features a double sole. So it's really a single knit sock, but if I flip it inside out, you can see it has a complete second sole inside. So these are just a few of the many uses of this type of pocket technique.
That's a great use, isn't it?
It does
save darning.
Exactly, and it's cozy. Also, the rest of the sock is single knit, so it's not quite so bulky in your shoe. It's bulkier on the sole, but it is warm and nicely insulated.
Brilliant.
Here's a selection of pockets. The one I'm going to show you today is a vertical pocket, but with a little extra fiddling around, you can make side opening pockets. So you could be working a cardigan and include these side opening pockets, and these are finished as they go. Not a single break of yarn is involved in making these pockets. They are done when they are finished.
Oh, that's excellent.
So
cool. Okay. So, and you're going to demonstrate something now for us.
Absolutely. So we're going to imagine this is our sweater, and we're going to put a pocket in over the middle 8 stitches. So the first 3 are the background of the garment. So this is the right hand side of the garment. Now we have to make twin stitches in the area we're going to double. And it's very much like a right slanting increase. Reach over and look at the purl bump of the mother stitch. This is the stitch on the needle, but its mother is down here. Slide your needle tip down and into the purl bump and knit. You have just made a sibling stitch, and unlike the regular increase where you would then knit this stitch, you just slip it purlwise. So you're making identical twin stitches. Slip, raised, increase. Do remember to slip the sibling. And you do that for as many pairs as you wish your pocket to be wide. So having made my twin stitches, you'll find yourself at the left edge of the pocket. I'm going to change to another colour just to demonstrate where the new stitches are going. It involves quite a few partial rows, so I've turned the work around, and the stitches we just made belong to the pocket back. The first row of the where you're actually building the pocket is going to work on the back of the pocket stitches. So this was a sibling stitch, so I'm going to slip it, and then I'm going to purl. So I'm slipping the front stitch and purling the back stitch. Slip and purl. And if you've done this a few times, you can actually speed this up into what I call a slip purl by going into the stitch to slip and purling. And this is an example of one of the many possible needle efficiencies you can make in double knitting in different circumstances. So I'm making sure I slip my front stitch and purl my back stitch. So I have grown 1 row on my pocket back, and I've got to the edge of the pocket and I'm turning again. Now it's the turn of the pocket front stitches, which were the original siblings. So I slip with yarn in front so I don't tangle the layers up, and knit. Slip with yarn in front and knit. Slip. By the time I get close to the end of the pocket, all of the pocket stitches have had a turn. that there's a row on the back, a row on the front, but it's no good having a pocket with no garment. So this time I've got to go to the edge of the knitting. After completing a sequence of 4 partial rows, I've gone across the back. I've come from the left edge to the right edge, and I would continue for several repeats, and this creates 2 row stripes if you're using alternating colours. But today I just want to show you inside the knitting. So if we take this off the needle and magically open, there is your pocket. And it can open to the front of the work or it can open to the inside. It's so much fun.
That's super cool. Okay. And then I know that you can stuff it as well. I can see that you've done that in other designs. So talk about stuffing for a 3D effect.
Stuffing is another thing that you can do with double knitting that you can't easily do with single knitting. And so this is my bubbles scarf. And each of these circles, because the yarn crosses from one side to the other at the edge of a colour block, I was able to tuck a little bit of fleece or batting in between the layers before continuing on, just to add a little bit of fun. And on this scarf, this is Hugs and Kisses, my hearts have a little padding, and this one actually has hugs on one side and kisses on the other, and little stuffed hearts. So you can do it for warmth or just for the fun of it.
It's gorgeous. It looks really great.
Yes. So I've been playing lately. I went on a trip to Shetland last year, and it made me crave to experiment with Fair Isle designs in double knitting. I mean, all those floats at the back, why bother? Or floats or weaving. However, I do always caution knitters in my classes to avoid taking a Fair Isle type design and interpreting it in double knit technique, because Fair Isle, it revolves around having many colour changes. They're harder to read in double knitting. This is a simple piece of double knitting with a vertical stripe, and you can see the colour change. Where there are 2 stitches of the same colour side by side on the needle, that indicates the beginning end of that colour change. And if I take the needle out of this, you can see the path of the yarn. It flips from one side to the other, so the yarn crosses over.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, from here.
And you can see the holes that you could stuff. And so this is just a little experiment. And you can see, because Fair Isle is designed differently, there's a colour change, there's a colour change, there's a colour change. There are so many colour changes, but it's very hard to read because the 2 layers are so intimate on the needle. It certainly can be done, just shouldn't be taken on lightly. I'm not finished yet, but
it's looking beautiful. Let me just hold it up here so you can see. I love all of these limey greens put together. That'll be very interesting. So that's the outside, and that's the inside. That's what it's potentially going to be looking like.
It's just going to be a headband. But, I mean, you don't have a wrong side, which is one of the wonderful things. And that's something I particularly love in scarves and blankets, because you don't have to worry about floats. And you can take your yarn much greater distances when you have a design for double knitting. So you can do bigger, bolder shapes and not worry about floats.
So you're always looking for an advantage or an opportunity to develop double knitting in one. You haven't given up.
Oh, not at all. That's the thing, there's so many options. Double knitting, even if we just take the stocking stitch like this, it could be stocking stitch like this.
Yeah.
It could be stocking stitch with, there's 32 different options without even getting into colour patterning, just by different fabric layouts, open edges, closed edges, open bottoms, open tops. All of these things can be done in double knitting, and some of these cannot be replicated in single knitting.
This is the engineer part of your brain coming out, I think. And this is also double knitted. Even though it looks extremely complex, it's actually quite simple, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
remarkably simple. That it's one set of increases every fourth round. I used double increase in 8 places, and I'm exploiting the benefit of a long gradation hand-dyed yarn.
Yes, which is looking beautiful.
And I've used different lengths of ombre yarns as the blanket gets bigger and bigger, and I've never used more than 2 colours per round in that. You can go to 3 and 4, but as soon as you start carrying a third or fourth colour, you're starting to strand, but you can strand with inside the fabric because you've got a hiding place.
Yeah.
But it does change the gauge.
Okay, now Lucy has also acquired a lot of knowledge in an area where a lot of us struggle, and that is beautiful finishing techniques for our garments. So first of all, I just want you to quickly tell us why you're so passionate about finishing, not fishing. Or whatever I said.
I'm fishing.
And then just show us again some of the more advanced finishing techniques that you teach.
I love finishing techniques. I love teaching them because it's so empowering. You can make beautiful knitting look pretty ordinary with poor finishing. You can make ordinary knitting look quite great with beautiful finishing. It also gives you a pleasure in finishing because people tend to hate it and despise it. But if you actually make a beautiful seam, you can actually admire it and feel really delighted.
You can.
And that's my goal. And it all gets down to understanding your stitches. This is the atom that makes up our universe. That's a single, happy and contented knit stitch. They're very sociable. They like to hold hands with a stitch on either side. And the heads and the arms get hidden behind the back of the work. And what you see in your knitting are those little V's. So this is one single happy knit stitch surrounded by its friends. And it's the friends that make it have that shape. A single knit stitch on its own is just a piece of yarn on the floor. But the friends surrounding it give it that shape, it gives it elasticity, it gives it recovery power. The next thing to understand about stitches is there are different situations. Where stitches come together heads to heads from opposing directions, so that could be a sock toe or a shoulder situation, we cannot join them with pretend knitting, a needle threaded knitting known as grafting. We can't join them perfectly. You can't see a problem in the middle, but it sticks out half a stitch at either end. And that doesn't matter on a sock toe or on a shoulder. So here is a grafted shoulder. The bound off edge is underneath to prevent stretch, but it gives a beautiful finish. And in the case of a sock toe, here are your sock stitches coming at each other from opposing directions, and we're using that same waste yarn trick to guide us with the grafting. I start in the middle and go first in one direction and then the other. But these are stitches heads to heads. The real ultimate situation is where stitches approach each other heads to feet. So this is really useful in rescues, and you'll notice that when we join 3 stitches to 3 stitches, the columns line up and we can make a perfect join such as we did earlier. Following on from happy stitches, some of my favourite things about finishing are button bands. This is my magic buttonhole. Is a reverse stocking stitch graft, and you actually make the preparation for this with waste yarn in that place, and then you sew copying the waste yarn, and it unites both layers and it's beautiful on both sides. This vest also features a facing, and I do love facings for controlling edgings without having to have ribbing. And this is the Fiesta vest, which features flying swallow stitch.
It is so neat and so beautiful. Do you just know the gauge offhand, roughly what needle size you'd be using there?
Probably a 2.5 mil, which is about a 1 US.
Have a look at the back. It's just very, very beautiful knitting.
I call this paint box
beautiful.
check because each colour is surrounded by white. So I was trying to extract the beauty of the hand paints. And this flying swallow stitch particularly does that because it focuses little pools of colour. It's a knit, double yarn over knit, which you then spread out and pull up on the next round.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
Okay.
This vest wanted to be colourful, but in fact it wouldn't let me do it. So for me this was very restrained. But what is of interest here is I do love a double band. Almost all my bands are double. Very controllable, really frames your garment. And here I used a double turning row. I don't know why I used a single on my armhole, but can you see the difference? How beautifully flat this lays. And here I wish I had done a double turning row, but it's more squeezed. It's not quite laying as neatly. It's neat, but that is much, much nicer. And you can even do multiple reverse stocking stitch rows for a more tubular edge. And this one yet again features a facing to control the lower edge without ribbing.
That's great. Yeah, it does. It gives it a nice firm finish, doesn't it?
Yes, and it settles it down. And
yeah. A little bit of weight.
Exactly. Another thing that I think is incredibly important about button bands is to pay attention to the point at which they go round the corner. And if you look very closely at this band, you can see that there's actually a triangle of extra fabric that I squeeze in at the corner. So when I'm knitting up stitches for a band, I draw a little diagram. I knit up my stitches based on ratios. I mark my corner stitch and repeat it all the way round. If there's any discrepancy between the two sides, on the return row, I correct the numbers. So I don't know the total number, but I know the amount between here and here is the same, between here and here is the same. And on right side rows, I add an extra stitch as I go outwards on the band. And then on the return rows, I decrease away those extra stitches. If you don't do that with the corner, you're doing origami with yarn and it will flip in and it will flip out. That little bit of attention to detail will make such a difference to your bands.
Yeah, okay, so you've added in a triangle increasing for this side, and then for when you're knitting the facing side, you're decreasing back again. And it just makes it really a nice corner, doesn't it? It's great.
It's properly shaped and it won't flop around.
That's great. I can see with your knitting how neat it is and how beautiful it is. It's super, super impressive. I'm wondering, have you got an example of finishing where you've really had to come up with a lot of radical solutions?
Oh, yes.
For difficult problems. Okay, let's have a look.
This is a little embarrassing, really.
It can't be because the knitting's so gorgeous.
This vest, we'll look at both sides, was inspired by South American knitting. I wanted to use different motifs, but these have something in common. So each of these pieces was knit from the big end of the triangle. So 4 triangles equals a tube. There's the side triangle. And it was knit downwards like a lopsided ice cream cone with a steek. And it was cut apart.
Okay.
These took quite a while. They were all done on 2 mils or 0 needles. And I hadn't actually thought about, I thought I would make these pieces of fabric and then I'd just put them together. Now, when I put this fabric directly next to that one, it was horrific. It was all that work and it looks disgusting. So I thought, I had got fully fashioned shapings on either side of my steek, so I had a nice straight edge along which I could mattress stitch. So good old mattress stitch to the rescue. This is a 4-stitch I-cord. If you've got a problem, break up the fight. And so there's a 4-stitch I-cord, and you can see 2 stitches of I-cord on either side. So I have worked my cord on 1 size larger needle because this is the hypotenuse of these rows. And I have mattress stitched it all the way up, one rung and 1 rung, all the way up here and here. That wasn't planned, but it absolutely made it.
It looks fantastic, but it's really ingenious.
So there are my steeks.
So these are the steeks, yeah.
Yep.
That's the I cord in between.
Yep. It wasn't, you get a crisis and you work your way out of it.
Yeah.
So that was
I
the
love
first.
this too.
That's an ear flap. I mean, it was a job to find a place for an ear flap.
Off a hat.
On a vest. And then I really wanted to work this South American edging. This turquoise area was the end of my band. So this edging had to be worked upwards. And my next challenge was, because of the pattern repeat on the puntas, I ended up with 8 stitches more on one side than the other. So I had to join 80 to 88. So I used my waist yarn to hold my stitches, but on the long side, on my first row of waist yarn, I made 8 decreases. So working with my waist yarn, knit 2 together, knit a few more, knit 2 together, 8 approximately equally spaced decreases. And that way I then could put my waist yarns together, graft following it, and the decreases were held with the main colour stitches one over the other, so I could graft them as if they were one. And so that way I got a perfect fit, even though they weren't actually the same size to begin with. My next big challenge was the band.
Okay, back on the front side.
Because the band actually begins next to the ear flap and goes up and over, round. There's the corner, attention to corner detail, getting wider there.
Oh, yeah.
And round the other side. All of this on 0 or size 2mm needles, with more stitches than I can accurately count. So I did my accounting of keeping equal numbers in equal places and fine-tuning it on the way back. So I knew I had equally balanced stitches, and I wanted these to match nicely. So I set up my pattern, went up to the back of neck, and I dedicated this central column as my turning point, and I reversed the pattern about that point. That guaranteed me a match without having to count more than very many stitches. I didn't have to take my socks off.
This really deserves to be in a museum. When I went to the Shetland, Wool Week and went to the Shetland archives, and you see these beautiful old garments that were knitted, and people love to study them to see how did the knitter overcome this mistake, or what has she done. This is such good reading.
Well, the joke of it is, with all these mistakes and challenges that it was entered into the TKGA knitting challenge, and it actually won it.
Yeah,
many years ago.
It should. It's a really fantastic piece for a knitter to get involved and read.
It's called the Andean vest.
Yeah, and see how you've done what. I think many people would be totally fascinated to be staring at it with a glass up close. That's really fantastic. It's been so wonderful having you with such advanced skills showing us a taste of what knitting can do, or what you can do with knitting, the great craft of it and the great skill that's involved in the beauty. You're a real wizard with colour. And we have to end the interview, but you've got fantastic colour everywhere, but also you are so colourful yourself. And I have to ask a question that I'm sure the audience are wanting to know. How do you get such clear defines with all of the colour in your hair?
Very patient hairdresser. She was the first one I could find that would play with fun colours. And we're talking 25 years here now. Initially, I just did blobs of colour, and then it just changes the way the world interacts with you, and she's very patient and does little sections of colour, and she keeps an array of colours for me, and she's great, and it just changes the way the world sees you.
Yeah.
And it's actually, the older you get, the more people like it, and it opens, you have conversations you'd never would have had without it. So
exactly.
I maintain it. I mean, not normally quite to this level. I mean, I let it get somewhat faded, and I quite enjoy the fading out, and then I just throw some more colours in. So it's at its finest right now.
And it's looking brilliant with your glasses.
Thank you. Thank you. Everything in my life is colourful.
Yes, even the earrings have been, I don't know if we pointed these out.
Those are actually knit by my daughter.
Double knitting, very, very fine gauge. That's miniature knitting there. Well, it's been such a joy to have you on Fruity Knitting, so thank you.
Well, wonderful to meet you guys, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Let's say goodbye to the audience.
Bye. Happy
Bye.
stitches.